Title: Whispers of the Blackwood. I had always been drawn to the wilderness, to the untouched heart of the forest where the world's chaos could not reach. So, when I decided to spend a weekend camping in the deep woods of Blackwood, I had expected tranquility, solitude, and a chance to escape the incessant noise of modern life. Little did I know, this trip would unravel the fabric of my reality and plunge me into a nightmarish ordeal. The first day was as serene as I had hoped. The wind whispered through the towering pines, and the sunlight filtered through the leaves in golden shards. I hiked along meandering trails, feeling the embrace of nature's calming presence. As the day waned, I set up my campsite beside a small babbling stream. The rhythmic sound of the water lulled me into a peaceful sleep. It was sometime past midnight when I awoke to a chilling breeze. The fire had dwindled to a faint glow, casting eerie shadows that danced upon the trees. A sense of unease gripped me, as if unseen eyes were watching from the darkness. I dismissed it as my imagination, attributing my unease to the unfamiliar surroundings. Unable to fall back asleep, I sat up and stared into the inky blackness beyond the fire's feeble light. That's when I heard it, a faint whisper carried by the wind. It was indistinct at first, like distant conversations echoing through the trees. I strained my ears, trying to catch the words, but they remained elusive, like smoke slipping through my fingers. Then, the whispers grew clearer, more coherent. It was as if a group of people were murmuring right at the edge of my perception. I stumbled to my feet, my heart pounding like a war drum. With trepidation, I followed the sound deeper into the woods, my flashlight cutting through the suffocating darkness. As I ventured further, the whispers seemed to multiply, layering upon each other until they formed a dissonant chorus. The air grew colder, and an unnatural fog crept in, obscuring my vision. Panic clouded at my chest, yet some unexplainable force compelled me to keep moving forward. The trees took on grotesque shapes, their gnarled branches resembling skeletal fingers. The forest floor was damp and uneven, and with every step, I felt as though the earth itself was trying to pull me down into its depths. The whispers grew louder, their urgency intensifying, yet I still couldn't decipher their meaning. And then, emerging from the fog, I saw them, shadowy figures, indistinct but unmistakably human-shaped. They stood in a circle, facing inward, their whispers rising and falling like a macabre incantation. My breath caught in my throat as I realized that I was surrounded. I should have turned and fled, should have abandoned any semblance of curiosity, but an irresistible curiosity rooted me in place. The figures began to sway, their movements synchronized as if part of some sinister ritual. The whispers transformed into a haunting melody, a mournful tune that sent shivers down my spine. Suddenly, one of the figures stepped forward, its head tilting in my direction. Panic surged within me, and I finally found my voice. "Who are you?" I shouted, my voice trembling with fear. The figure's head turned slowly, and I caught a glimpse of hollow eyes that seemed to penetrate my very soul. The whispers ceased abruptly, and the forest fell into an oppressive silence. Then, with a jarring suddenness, the figure lunged at me, its fingers elongated and skeletal. I stumbled backward, tripping over a root and falling to the ground. With a primal instinct, I scrambled to my feet and fled, my heart pounding like a drum, my breath coming in ragged gasps. The whispers pursued me, echoing through the woods, a cacophony of voices that seemed to fill the very air. I burst through the trees, back into my campsite, and without a second thought, I began tearing down my tent, extinguishing the fire and packing up my belongings. I didn't stop until I was out of the woods, back to my car, back to the realm of civilization and safety. To this day, I can't shake the feeling that I stumbled upon something ancient and malevolent in those woods, something that should never have been disturbed. The whispers still haunt my dreams, and the memory of those shadowy figures remains etched in my mind. Blackwood's secrets are best left untouched, for there are forces lurking in the depths of the forest that defy comprehension and invoke terror beyond imagination.
The first crackle of twigs beneath my boots sent a shiver down my spine, a prelude to the unsettling journey that awaited me. The sun was a fading memory beyond the canopy, and the woods swallowed me whole. I had sought solitude in this primal realm, a break from the clamor of the modern world. Little did I know that I was stepping into a nightmare that would etch itself into the core of my being. The initial day was uneventful. I set up camp in a tranquil glade, surrounded by the hushed whispers of ancient trees. My fire danced with defiance against the encroaching darkness. The wilderness seemed to embrace me, cradling me in its wild embrace. It was as if the very soul of the woods reached out to me, inviting me into its secrets. As night cast its inky veil upon the land, I lay in my tent, caught in the thrall of the symphony of night creatures. But beneath the soothing lullaby was an undercurrent of unease. The shadows played tricks on my eyes, morphing into phantoms that slinked beyond the light's reach. Still, I managed to drift into a restless sleep, my dreams fraught with fleeting glimpses of spectral figures and distant mournful cries. A distant howl pierced the silence, jolting me awake. The fire had dwindled to embers, and an all-encompassing darkness pressed against the walls of my tent. The forest seemed to hold its breath, waiting. It was then that I heard it, a faint whisper, like a breeze through leaves. I strained my ears, attempting to make sense of the words carried by the wind. "Find us." The voice was haunting, laden with a sorrow that resonated deep within me. It was as if the very heart of the forest itself was speaking, a lament for something long lost. Fear wrapped its tendrils around me, constricting my chest. Yet there was an irresistible pull, a curiosity that transcended my dread. Driven by an inexplicable compulsion, I emerged from my tent into the enigmatic night. The forest seemed to pulse with a living energy, ancient and powerful. Each step took me deeper into the unknown, guided solely by the haunting whispers that tugged at my consciousness. It was a journey into the heart of the abyss, a place where reality and dreams intertwined. Hours melted away, and the moon hung heavy in the sky, casting an ethereal glow upon the landscape. The whispers grew more distinct, a chorus of lost souls yearning for release. And then I saw it, a clearing bathed in an otherworldly light. At its center stood a gnarled tree, its branches reaching toward the heavens like skeletal arms. As I approached, the whispers crescendoed into a cacophony of voices, overlapping and intertwining. Their words were a tapestry of sorrow and longing, woven into the very fabric of the night. My heart pounded in rhythm with their chant, and I raised my hand to touch the tree. The instant my fingers grazed its bark, a surge of memories flooded my mind. I saw flashes of a forgotten era, a tribe that once worshipped the forest as a deity, offering its sacrifices in exchange for protection and wisdom. But as the tribe grew corrupted by power, their reverence turned to greed, and they began to exploit the very land they had revered. In their wake, they left desolation, and the forest wept for its lost guardians. The voices grew more desperate, their cries a haunting lament for the past. I stumbled back, overwhelmed by the weight of their sorrow, but the roots of the tree reached out, ensnaring my ankles with an iron grip. Panic surged within me as I realized the truth. I was to become the conduit for their story, the vessel through which their anguish would find release. The memories of the tribe flooded my mind, their pain and regret consuming me. I felt their collective sorrow, their longing for redemption. And then, with a deafening crescendo, their voices merged into one, a mournful wail that reverberated through the very fabric of my soul. The ground trembled, and the forest seemed to weep tears of moonlight. The roots tightened their grip, and the light of 1,000 stars swallowed me whole. In that moment, I became a vessel of history, a bridge between worlds. I felt the weight of their suffering, their regrets, and their unfulfilled desires. It was a burden that threatened to shatter my sanity. And then, as quickly as it had begun, it was over. I lay on the forest floor, gasping for air, the memories of the tribe fading like mist in the morning sun. The dawn painted the sky in hues of pink and gold, and the woods were once again serene. The gnarled tree stood as a silent sentinel, its branches whispering secrets to the wind. I emerged from the woods forever changed, a part of their story now etched into my very being. The haunting voices had found their release, but their echoes would forever linger in the corners of my mind. The experience had transcended fear, delving into a realm of profound connection with the past. Whenever I close my eyes, I can still hear the whispers. Deep within the heart of the woods, I pitched my tent in a small clearing. The wind whispered through the dense trees and shadows danced in the firelight. Seeking solitude, I embarked on this camping trip to escape city chaos. But solitude can easily transform into isolation, and serenity into something far more sinister. The first night was peaceful. The crackling fire provided security, and crickets serenaded me. But unease prickled my subconscious. An invisible force seemed to watch from the shadows, fixated on my every move. I awoke to twigs snapping beyond the fire's glow. Heart racing, I strained my ears. The forest had fallen silent. Was it an animal or something more? Fear froze me, and the chilling wind seemed to carry a distant whisper. Eventually, the forest resumed its symphony, and I dismissed my fears as paranoia. Dawn painted the sky in pink and gold, and I ventured deeper, lost in thought. Hours passed, and the trees shifted, distorting the landscape. Panic set in. I was lost, trapped in a nightmare. As the day wore on, something was amiss. Trees changed positions, and the sky grew overcast. Panic tightened its grip. Hopelessness took hold as I struggled in the labyrinthine woods. Night fell, and I huddled in my tent with a flashlight. No signal, no way to reach the world beyond. Panic clawed at me, and shadows in the tent contorted mockingly. The forest grew silent. Cold air and a whisper. Come. It tugged at me, and I hesitated. The voice persisted, and I felt it in my mind. Come to us. My body moved on its own, drawn toward the tent's entrance. The voice grew more insistent, blurring reality. The boundary between nightmare and reality dissolved. And then, I awoke. Drenched in sweat, I stumbled out of the tent. Symbols adorned the trees, pulsing with energy. A figure stood in the circle, eyes crimson. The voice echoed in my mind. You are ours now. Understanding crashed over me. I had entered a realm beyond human understanding. As the figure beckoned, I knew escape was impossible. With a final breath, I stepped into the circle of trees, vanishing into the abyss beyond.